No. No, I want them all killed. Yes! Immediately! Thanks. Hi, I'm Dr. Sinister, and when I'm not ruling the world or generally making everybody's life a misery, I like to make Lego comic strips, and today I'd like to give you a few tips on how I do it. So, let's crack on. The comic you'll probably know me for most of all is Grunts, which is a Lego comic strip focusing on the humorous activities of the military. I'll admit that my output on Grunts has decreased a lot recently. However, for anybody who may have heard my interview on LAML radio some months ago, I did always say that I would never force the issue, and essentially if I ran out of ideas for Grunts I would eventually stop doing them. I do have other ideas lined up, including perhaps a comic strip featuring myself. As you can see here, Dr. Sinister has appeared in Grunts itself several times, but I'm still making Grunts. I make the odd one every now and then, not as regular as I used to be, but I've still got some good ideas. And in fact I was very pleased earlier in the year that Grunts actually ended up featuring on the BBC News website. Now, before you start your Lego comic, you need to have a definite plan in mind, a script, an idea of where it's going. Don't just make it on the hoof. You need to have planning. You need to have a layout. You need to decide how many panels you're going to have, and you need to decide what's going to happen in each panel. Just like any drawn cartoonist, you need to have something in place, a sketch if you like, of how this thing's going to look, how it's going to develop. Even if it's just a scribbled notes on a post-it note, you need to have something written down to decide, what your punchline is going to be, and essentially how the comic strip is going to develop. One of the most important things to get right, of course, is the scenery for your comic strip, the location of where the action is taking place. A lot of the Grunts comic strips take place in jungle territory with the troops in battle, so I keep a tray of handy Lego elements ready for just such an occasion. Now here you can see I've knocked up a basic jungle set with a base plate, some foliage, some trees and some rocks as background. Not only do the rocks offer a nice contrast for the scene that's going on, they serve a more practical purpose in not revealing that the entire thing is in fact shot in my kitchen. You'll note also I've secured the base plate with some tape. This isn't essential unless you're making a strip with a static camera and lots of panels that require identical backgrounds. The last thing you want is for the scenery to start moving around, so it's best to stick it down. Okay, on to the next stage. Lighting, also important. You don't want to be shooting in the dark and for your images to come out all horrible and murky. So here you can see I'm using two halogen lights that allow me to illuminate the entire set evenly, or if I want to, I can of course move them around and focus the light in one location for maximum effect. I have an additional two lights if I really need them, but this brings me to one of the reasons why I shoot these things in my kitchen. I have lots of extra lighting all around, and it's all very helpful. Lights help you get the most out of your camera. It's possible to have too much light, but it's also a lot easier to bring the levels down in post-production than it is to lighten a dark image. If it's too dark, you've simply got nothing to work with. One thing I should add here about the lighting is when you're not using the lights, turn them off. These lights get very, very hot. You'll notice I've got them a respectful distance away from the Lego itself, so they don't have any possibility of melting the plastic. I don't know if that would be possible, but I certainly don't want to take the risk. Now, next thing is you can see I've got the camera in position. Now it's really important when you use a camera to make sure it's suitable for the job. Now I hasten to add here that I am not a camera expert by any means, but you need a few basic requirements. Number one is you need a macro mode for shooting really small items. Number two is you want a camera that can be mounted on a tripod. Now a tripod allows you to have a super stable platform for shooting, and if you're planning on using lots of similar panels in your comic, it means you can lock off the camera in one position and forget about it. A timer function is also handy. Basically means that you can just press the button, wait a few seconds, it'll take the shot. Now this basically eliminates camera shake, because at this kind of level of detail the slightest shake of the camera can cause blurriness and totally ruin your comic. It also goes without saying that the higher the megapixels on the camera, the better chance you have of getting a good result. I use a Sony H1 camera. It's a few years old, it does me well and it has all I need. Contrary to my own advice, I'm not actually using the macro mode for this shot. I've affixed a special close-up lens which allows me to get better shots. Okay, next up, here we are shooting the scene, and as you can see I have the figures set up in their poses. I have the camera all lined up here. Now the trick here is don't be afraid to take as many shots as you need to get it right. Out of focus shots, shots that are too dark, shots that are too bright, no good to anybody. If you have to effectively remount the scene because the pictures you've got on your computer are just no good, don't be afraid to do it. Nobody wants to read a blurry comic. I hasten to add, once again, that I'm not perfect in this regard, and I have let a few dodgy shots slip through, much to my shame. So, once you've got a few shots, and I would suggest a few shots of each panel that you want to do, or maybe even work on one panel at a time, then move on, make sure the script's all working out and you've got all the text in the right places. Then it's on to the post-production phase.